Welcome to the Take a Seat podcast with Clint
and Mario.
And today we are going to be talking about dating, the normal way of dating in the modern society versus Christian dating in modern society.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mario, I guess what are some of the benefits and drawbacks that you see with modern dating that you've experienced?
So, okay. I am not religious, I've said that before.
Mm-hmm.
But I have dated women of the faith.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I hope God can forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I mean, yes, I'm saying this in a joking way, but I'm
Mhm.
also serious.
Mm-hmm.
I have had sex with these women, even though they said they wanted to wait till marriage,
Mhm.
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, they didn't look back. I don't know. I don't keep up with them, whatever. But the point is that I do kind of feel bad about that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so there's a significant difference in the two. Dating with, quote unquote, the world's views and the laws of the world, and dating with the laws of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of religion, biblical rules. There you go. So, a few years ago, I want to say 2015, I dated this girl. I can say the first name, Crystal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Light complected Hispanic girl, reddish hair, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I met her on Tinder,
Mm-hmm.
and she was religious, or the refound virgin. What's the term?
Born again?
Born again virgin, right? And she was 22, 23, no kids, still living at home. So, I thought like, okay, no kids. And I respect it, and she gave me her whole background story. Like it was like, and she just Orthodox home, exactly what you would imagine Orthodox home. The daughter wants to go out and explore, the preacher's kid syndrome, that stuff. But her parents weren't preachers. They were just churchgoers.
Mm-hmm.
And she found that dating with the rules of the world,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the term is. I'm just saying the world as in, normal dating.
Right.
She found that she didn't find value in herself using the dating laws of the world, but she felt like dating with the constraints or with the laws and rules of the Bible in place made a difference to her, right?
Mhm.
Like it gave her the image that you're moving through the faith and you're pleasing God and this is going to go down the right road. Granted, had she met a different individual that was willing to respect that and not scumbag 22-year-old Mario, probably would have worked out in a better scenario.
Mm-hmm.
20, 21, one of those two. But, so this isn't something to like take away from her. I'm just stating what, she stood by. It was definitely a scumbag. So, that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
But, she carried herself differently than other women I was dating at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, she was comfortable with the idea of me talking to other women, which I will admit, I was actually just casually dating, but I actually didn't have sex with any of them because I was intrigued by the idea, right, of actually following through with this woman's, not demands, but requirements, per se. Now,
What kind of requirements are you talking about?
no sex,
Oh, okay.
obviously.
Yeah.
Even no fondling, because she thought that would lead to
Mm-hmm.
human nature kicking in.
Mhm.
So she kept it at kissing. I got to just grab her butt here and there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. She also was extremely feminine. Like what most guys now in today's dating world, quote unquote, would want, I guess. Like super reserved, doesn't act super masculine, doesn't do all that. But that's, I'm guessing, because of, her religious
Upbringing.
upbringing. Yeah. Now, this was very attractive to me at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely made her stand out from the other ones I was talking to, because the other ones, one of them was an Asian woman. I don't remember her name, or maybe I'm choosing not to remember her name. You'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a lot more of an easygoing, let's go and do something, go cars, let's go fuck here and there. Like, she was with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I wasn't. I was deliberately telling her, like, no, let's wait. I was using the facade, or that wall of, I'm trying to get to know you, right, as a cover up for why I didn't want to have sex with her. But really, it was because, Crystal. I was trying to respect her and see how that would go.
Mm-hmm.
The Asian girl was a little more masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
She had different principles of how she moved and navigated the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was more into drugs, which, again, I'm not speaking against it, because I was too at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not criticizing. I'm just stating the differences.
Right.
And though I'm wrong for it, I judged her for it. Obviously, it's hypocritical.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're going to say. Not you, but the audience.
No.
So, but I admired Crystal a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was extremely attracted to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on another level, you know?
Yeah.
But immature 20, 21-year-old Mario got tired of her within a month and a half. And then I did my thing with the Asian girl, and so forth and so forth. But I remember the last conversation I had with this girl, Crystal. And she actually, we didn't end things like on bad terms. Actually, it was pretty amicable, surprisingly. She was very disappointed in me. And she did state it, and I did feel bad for like a day or two.
Disappointed in you because of?
Because I led her on, and I had lied to her, and I had told her that, I'm looking for a forever type of thing, and though I'm not religious, like, I was being a fuckboy. Like, I told her what she wanted to hear, I'll admit. And, which I regret, because it was not being genuine. I don't like doing that. So, it stuck out, And even though I navigated the world after her, y'all know the story already. I always remember that. And oftentimes, see, now I have my girlfriend now. We've been together for a year and a half or whatever. But we don't apply, right, religious rules or biblical standards, whatever norms are in the Bible to our relationship. And I would say we're thriving. You have your natural differences. You have your natural male, female, all this regular stuff that happens in relationships. But it seems to be working. And I think it's interesting because I didn't think it would work, really. Not just because, her, but just in general. But I wonder, those differences, is that something that you notice, right, in your dating, I guess, world, or however you date? Is that something you notice, or is that even something that even applies to your life, right? Like, are there any notable differences between girls that you date that are religious, that aren't religious? And if there is, what are they,
One of the benefits that I see of Christian dating is having a similar belief system makes you not have to wonder where a person stands on something. So certain things go without saying that for the majority of Christians, you're going to be monogamous. You're not going to believe in divorce. you're going to more likely to be willing to work it out. Whereas in today's society, divorce is almost celebrated, um, and it's gotten to where there's no societal pressure even to stay married.
That's true.
Whereas in the past, there was at least societal pressure, and people were they felt ashamed to say that they were divorced. Whereas now it's like, oh, you got a divorce? Good job, man. Be free.
First
you know what I
time.
mean?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I think that there's a lot of, I'm not saying that there's not situations in which divorce are actually a good thing. If the person that you're with is cheating on you, it's like that's biblical that you should get a divorce or could get a divorce. It's not necessary, but you can get a divorce legally in the eyes of God, right?
Oh, wow.
Which makes sense, because if that person was to contract a sexually transmitted disease, it's like, well, that wasn't your fault, so you're free, right? But aside from that, it's like if you're both trying to please the same supreme being and have the same moral code, because otherwise, like, how do we define right from wrong?
Yeah.
You're right, and what I think is right and what you think is right. Eventually, we're going to come to this thing to where, oh, well, I think this is right and you think this is wrong, and at least in Christianity, the right and wrong is the same. So you come together and have the same moral foundation, and you don't have to figure it out the hard way with that partner of like, oh, what? Like, how could you even do that? It's like, oh, well, I don't think it's wrong to do that, because outside of Christianity, I would say that people create their own morals based on what they believe to be right and wrong. Whereas in Christianity, it's like, no, we adopt the belief of whatever it is the scriptures tell us is right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so I see a benefit in that, man. It's like, although there's different denominations, I think that the majority of denominations agree on the major issues. It's the second tier issues that we'll disagree on, like what's the proper way of baptism, or do you have to end the prayer in Jesus' name, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's the same. I also think that one of the benefits is that you're if both believers are actually dedicated to the faith, fully committed to the faith, there's a level of trust that they're more willing to tell the truth, if not because of you, at least because they're in fear of God, right? They fear the Lord.
Yeah.
So they're more likely to tell the truth, which I know that when I say this, it's like, oh, well, that's not true, because you hear about all these pastors and stuff like that. But it's like, of course, the sore thumbs are going to come and be exposed, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the majority of Christians that are actually dedicated to being, one, they're actually born again Christians, and two, actually like truly serving the Lord with their whole heart, like they're actually trying. And I think that that's going to prevent them from doing a lot more immoral things than somebody that doesn't have any real reason to not. I don't know, other than just societal consequences.
Now, I see the benefit, right? Granted, obviously, it doesn't apply to my relationship, but I do see the benefit.
Yeah.
And I do see it as, because you and I see the world differently, but there are certain alignments where we agree. And I think one of the major benefits of religion objectively being present in your relationship, assuming both parties, like you said, are willing to be honest because of your fear of God, etc., is that there is some type of structure there
Mhm.
instead of having to date and figuring it all out.
Yeah.
And then just thinking like, well, this is the next stage, this is the next stage. And in the Bible, I am assuming I don't know, and please correct me because obviously I'm ignorant
Mhm.
to that.
Mhm.
I am going to assume that in the Bible it says you meet the right one, marry her, period.
Mhm.
And then God will help you through your struggles. That's it.
Mhm.
But you're staying together because you feel like, I'm guessing both persons feel like God brought them together and they were meant to be together forever through ups and downs.
Mhm.
In comparison to a different relationship that doesn't have the principles of God,
Mhm.
right? No, let's say religion, not God. Religion
Mhm.
applied. You will navigate trying to figure out and gauge where certain people stand on certain things.
Mhm.
And the next stage might be the stage where you either end it or decide, okay, a little more time. A
Mhm.
little more time. Then you get married, do the whole facade of, don't they actually use God as a reference point in whenever you get married, right? Don't they? Or something like
Like
that?
you're talking about like a metaphor, like or like some sort of
Don't they
analogy?
don't they involve God or something like that at some point?
Well, like
Oh, I'm thinking about the
the
pledge.
marriage between a man and a woman is symbolic of the marriage between God and His church.
Mhm.
So Jesus said, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church," and it's it's this it's the masculine and feminine. God is order, and the church is chaos. Right? The church seeks God, and God God is God's the leader in the relationship, right?
Okay.
The church follows God in the relationship. Like that's the masculine feminine dynamic.
Mhm.
And I say this, and I feel like I'm already getting into hot water, but it is what it is. It's
I
like
mean, stay whatever.
yeah, it's like in even homosexual relationships, there's going to be the one that's going to emulate the masculine and one that's going to emulate the feminine.
Yeah.
And the one that's emulating the masculine is the leader, and the one that's emulating the feminine is the, I guess you could say, follower. And the problem with this is that society sees the following act as though that's a lesser role to be playing, and I don't believe that that's a lesser role. I think it's just a different role. But that's why masculinity is so praised in society, and why. Anyway, I'm gonna go on a tangent and get into.
Well, we need the details, so if anything, go on your tangent.
Okay, so it's like society shames women for just being housewives when that's not a dishonorable life. There's nothing dishonorable about that.
No.
It's like she's dedicating her life to her children and taking care of the home. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not lazy. That's loving. That's taking care of what you care about. And it's like, if that's what you want to do, then why are you going to shame somebody for what they want to do?
Yeah.
If it's not harming anybody and it's moral. So I don't understand that, but society nowadays shames women into feeling like they have to be an alpha male and be earning six figures and be a leader. It's like there's if everybody was a leader, we would all die as a society. Following is necessary.
I agree with that.
If you don't have followers, then you have no community. Like following is what, it's not a lesser role. It's just a different role. Followers are extremely important. It's like if Steve Jobs was, and mind you, you can all be like leaders in a little way, right? Like a mother's going to be a leader over her children, right? And that's how she can cultivate that form of leadership, right? It's like, but it's like not everybody should be a leader. I don't believe that that's a should. I don't necessarily even believe that all men should be a leader. Maybe only in a marriage, but I don't even believe that all men should get married or that it's necessary. I think that there's a lot of willpower and strength and discipline that goes into men that choose to not get married. And I use the word choose
Really?
Men that choose to not get married for instance, I don't know, priests or monks or people that are doing it for this sense of discipline and dedication. I think that that's something admirable. You know what I mean? It's like,
I get that. Yeah.
it takes a
Okay.
lot of self-control, and it's working contrary to the nature of man. So it's like anything that you're doing to resist your nature that's compelling you to do something, whether it's a sexual urge or whether it's an addiction of any kind, it's like that's a form of strength that should be admired in a human being.
But do you think the constructs of religion or the Bible, right, or the existence of God in your relationship is actually necessary? Now, let's remove the concept or like the debate of, the differences. Now let's actually go into like our individual beliefs of it.
Necessary for what?
Necessary for your relationship or your marriage. Like if you want to get married, are you going to be integrating the laws of the Bible?
I don't see the point of marriage outside of religion, because religion created marriage.
So you were one of those that would not get married.
If I wasn't a Christian, why? I don't even really see I see the cultural benefits of monogamy. I see the cultural benefits of monogamy versus polygamy. Polygamy, and there's studies that prove that polygamy destabilizes society, because what happens is that the most high value, high status men end up taking the majority of women, and they have 10, 20, 30 women that they're sleeping with because those women desire that one man. So what happens is all of the beta male men are now jealous, envious of that alpha male, and they either don't reproduce and they die off, or they end up trying to take out the alpha. That's why monogamy is so important, because it's like every one man gets a woman, and you have a healthy functioning society. There tends to be less crime in societies that are monogamous versus polygamous.
Is that true?
No, that's true. That's fact. There's data to prove that. I forgot your question.
No, it's just something. So we went from stating the differences, but now like the integration of.
I remember now. Okay. So, I mean, I think that religion, it's just the truth that religion created marriage, because marriage is supposed to be a union. It's a symbolic spiritual union before God of two people becoming one in the sight of God. Outside of religion, I'm like, why would I get married? Outside of maybe a tax break, I don't really see the point of it. It's like, if you're going to be faithful to me, you're going to be faithful to me.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't really see the point of marriage outside of religion for me.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for all Christians. I'm sure that there's probably some sort of data that shows that there's a psychological benefit of marriage, and probably the psychological benefit of marriage would be that there's now a contractual agreement that makes it more weighty, and since it's more weighty in your mind, then it's more likely to succeed, because for people that care about keeping this contractual agreement between each other, they're going to more likely succeed in something, because now they're feeling like they're breaking something, again, sacred.
Yeah.
And it's like, but the word sacred has religious ties to it. So I don't know. Outside of religion, I don't see the point of marriage.
This would be a conversation that's interesting to have with the professor. He's a guy that he and I both know, and he's married, but he's a very philosophical and very intellectually smart guy, or no man. Yeah, he's in his 40s or whatever, and I think he would definitely present a different lens to view this through. But like me, for example, right? Obviously, we're in a relationship. I'm in a relationship. We're trying to get to know each other more. Da, da, da. This is obviously supposed to lead to marriage, and I have had that discussion.
But only supposed to because the society we live in says supposed to. And the reason the society says supposed to is because the foundation of the society was a Christian foundation. Correct. So it's like, who cares?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I mean that's the foundation is Christian.
Definitely. That's why I'm like, okay, so who cares about pleasing society and trying to fit this cultural norm if the cultural norm doesn't make sense?
Well, the problem is that now marriage is seen as part of your identity, really. Not even so much as socially acceptable. There's a reason why there's a difference in getting a house by yourself and then getting a house when you're married. Yeah. There's different rates, different loans.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Different licenses, tax breaks. I mean, everything's different. So this is something that is structurally integrated into our society. And obviously, according to the structure in place, we're supposed to get married. That's why all these things are in place.
Yes. Yeah.
So personally, I've had this discussion with her. I am coming to terms with the reality of the situation, right? Yeah. I don't have to, but I feel like I want to.
Yeah.
Right. Not because, yes, I love her, but I don't have that typical ability to like fall in love and like do the over the top Instagram movie notebook bullshit where you're like, over, like
you're not romantic.
I'm not super romantic.
Yeah.
I'm romantic in privacy. I'm intimate when when it's needed at home, right? But I'm not the typical whatever scenario would be. So if I married her, it would be because I know naturally she's been invested for this long. That is the natural next step. And I am also comfortable with the idea of divorce, realistically. And this is where the integration of religion and the seclusion of religion, right, from a marriage is going to make the difference. Because I am curious if she and I were Christians or Catholic, whatever, if it would make a difference in the views that we have and how we would go about marriage. Because currently, right, not integrating those rules, I'm perfectly fine with the idea of getting married, and I'm also perfectly fine with the idea of divorce. Because I understand human nature. I understand that, hell, you'll see it anywhere. I think that's part of the reason why divorce is very common now. I think people are accepting that, you know what, it was either a mistake, we were too young, or we just had too many, what's the term? Irreconcilable differences. Yeah. I think, sure, there may be excuses in a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's valid for a lot of them.
Yeah.
There is no definite answer to divorces and marriages because it's too complex of a ideology or of a concept, really. If you truly choose to think about it. If you don't, and you're the type to like fall in love and let's get married forever because that's all I want, congratulations. I'm happy that you don't have to think about shit the way I do because it's a fucking headache. But
and that's another thing. Like, why get married if you're not a Christian, and if you are making a good sum of money and choose not to get a prenup, then you're gonna lose half of your stuff. It's like, what's the freaking point?
Yeah.
It's not a benefit to you as a man to get married, except to please the woman that probably wants to get married because of some sort of Disney or media indoctrination that happened at her youth. Like, I just don't see I plan on getting married, but I'm a Christian and I see the spiritual reasoning behind it. But man, like at this point in my life, if for some reason I was to completely forsake Christianity and turned away, I would not get married. I'm I would actually probably become such a callous, cold human being that I don't think I would even be monogamous. I would probably be polygamous. I would probably just sleep around and indulge in whatever sort of lustful pleasure that this earth has to offer me, even though knowing that these lustful pleasures all come with a cost that are going to be a detriment to me. But I would probably still try and play the game and hopefully bet on red and win out on this game of roulette that I'm taking a chance on. I don't know, though.
And this discussion, you are 35 and I'm 27, so you're getting to the age where you really have to consider. That's a joke. I know you're not.
I was like, hold up, dude.
No,
I'm not 35.
No, it's supposed to be an old joke. No. And I'm not against either lifestyle. I mean, I was in that lifestyle, right? And even as a more emotionally mature individual, still discovering myself a couple of years ago before my girlfriend, I was comfortable. I was actually comfortable with the idea of being polygamous. Going about my business, getting my degree, thriving on my own. And if I found someone, great. But at that time, my mentality was, I don't want to find somebody because that'll only be a setback. Granted, I learned my lesson. I was actually wrong. I find I thrive a lot more now in this relationship than when I wasn't in a relationship. Because I'm not against either lifestyle. I encourage for people to make their own choices and be comfortable with that. Now, live with the consequences of said choices and don't regret them and start switching shit up while you're, like, if you're in a relationship, fucking left and right in the background, definitely the wrong way to go about it. You should have just stayed single. Fuck it. I think that there's always going to be obstacles. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to be polygamous, be polygamous. Live your life, thrive in it. Been down that road, not a good one. From my experience. Right?
I think the clinical data shows that it's not a benefit, even to your psyche.
Like for women especially. Even if I'll add this on. I'm not going to correct anything. I will add on. Great that women have the landscape now, or that, at least to me, I think it's perfectly fine that they have the freedom of choice and you have the liberties to go fuck whoever, however many you want. But, damn it, I wish I had the data. But I know there are statistics proving and actually testimonies from women themselves that I have dated that feel like they have lost their value as a human being because they have been fucked left and right. That warps their perception of relationships and themselves to the point where they don't even think they can handle an actual relationship. Not that they can't, not that they won't, but being polygamous as a woman definitely compromises your integrity, both as a woman and in the dating world. You tell a man, this is definitely going to upset y'all, and pardon me speaking the facts. But you tell a man, before I dated you officially and we were together, yes, I was talking to a couple, but I was fucking a dozen.
Right.
You stuck out like a thumb and I love you. Right?
Right.
They'll say that. I don't care who this guy is. Every single guy. Beta, male, alpha, whatever. I'd said male. But it doesn't matter. Every single man will look at you or think of you in some certain way. Based on how they react to that, they'll decide, okay, I'm going to look past it and move forward. but that's going to be about 3 out of 10 guys.
Yeah.
Most will say, you know what? You use goods. I'm good. I'm going to keep it moving. It is a horrible misconception to have, and I think it is unfair to have that against women, but it is one that is present, and it is prevalent, and it is thriving. So, with that being said, it also affects men. Now, let's remove the success stories, right? Just say you and I stay at, we're going to make $65K the rest of our lives, and that's it. Let's put that cap right now, hypothetically. You won't benefit. I don't think so. I don't think I would benefit from being polygamous the rest of my life, capping at $65K. Because one, though I won't be needing money, I will be needing company. And you and I both know we may be talking to a lot of them, but at the end of the day, or maybe sleeping with a lot of them, whatever, at the end of the day, you're going to bed alone. The thought of being alone and dying alone will ingrain itself in your mind. And if you're like me, that thinks a lot, it will repeat itself every single day that you were alive. I remember back in my days, every single night I went to bed, I was watching either porn or I was looking at girls on Instagram or thinking about who I'm fucking next, but nobody was in my bed next to me. I realized I am not comfortable at that point in time, right? Being polygamous anymore or polyamory, whatever the term is. And so I started to date seriously, and then here I am now. I'm very happy at this current stage of my life, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely think that it goes both ways. This isn't just something that affects women. No. It also affects men.
Yeah.
And it completely warps your psyche and your perception of relationships. I think so. But I mean, you may disagree. I don't know.
Are you talking about me as a person?
You. Like, yeah, well, what is your views on what I just said?
I mean, I totally agree, but I totally agree. I really do. I've told you this countless times that I think that, okay, I'll still say I think that there's not one thing biblically that applies to modern Christianity, New Testament, I guess you could say laws. We'll say laws for lack of a better term. New Testament laws or teachings from Jesus that God prohibits man to do that isn't a benefit for man in general. And by man, I don't mean man singular. I mean man as the collective. For instance, it's like God says, don't have sex until marriage. It's like, okay, well, but I really love this person. It would be a benefit for me to have sex with this person, to share and express my love for them in a physical fashion. It's like, okay, yeah, but the problem is that you do it, your neighbor does it, the whole world does it, and what happens is sexually transmitted disease spreads throughout the population, and however many, I will say thousands, die from it. It's like if everybody was to remain pure until marriage, sexually transmitted disease wouldn't exist. It just wouldn't exist. It either wouldn't exist or it would be so minimal that it would be negligible, the sexually transmitted disease. So it's like, I just have that belief about everything that God asks man to do. It's like every single sin is for the benefit of mankind and man singular. Like at me as an individual, it benefits me in some way. It's not a benefit to God, because what does God benefit? He can't lose anything. He could create a whole nother people if he wants to really be satisfied with man. He doesn't need mankind for anything. Yeah. He can destroy us now and just create better beings that are just going to love and worship him and be on the same page. But it's like,
Yeah.
for some reason, he gets a thrill out of having these broken creations that are figuring it out and relying on him, and he's helping guide them through this walk of life.
There's another layer to this.
Mhm.
See, this is an onion conversation, and I say onion because there's obviously layers to
Mhm.
every onion.
Mm-hmm.
There's multiple layers and multiple ways of looking at this and different points to point out.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever's listening to this isn't something to get offended about. This isn't something to take personally.
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
something to think about, because
Mhm.
there's the simple idea of getting married isn't as simple as it seems.
Yeah, I
at
agree.
all.
I agree.
And because if it was, everyone would be married and we wouldn't have any problems right now.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have rap music. So, and I love rap music. So it is what it is. But another aspect of this is the structure that it comes with regarding family. So let's just remove all the worst case scenarios, all the shitty men and all the shitty women. Let's just take the image of what God would quote unquote want, right?
Mhm.
You have a man, woman, 2, 3 kids, 1 to 3 kids, whatever, how many kids. You all thrive, you all grow, you're all pure specimen. And I don't mean like pure, you don't sin. I mean more so like you're all followers of God. You grow and your family grows, and then you're all through the faith, and then that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I think that's what the ideal religious marriage would want, right? I mean, is that a safe assumption per se?
Yeah.
But the problem lies, or one of the problems is, when you have now integrating human behavior, horrible men that marry because of the traditional views, right?
Mhm.
And you're like, okay, well, I want a wife. Hey, dating you, let's get married. But this man never worked on himself, and he's a piece of shit.
Mhm.
And he treats his wife horribly.
Right.
And his wife sticks around because of the idea of marriage and because that's what God wants, right?
The wife sticks around?
The wife sticks around.
Okay.
Or maybe she feels like she has no choice.
Mhm.
There you go. I think that's a better way to put it.
So are you saying that she's a believer and he's not a believer?
They're both believers,
But he's a horrible man.
but he's a horrible man.
How is he a what is he, a new believer and working on himself? Like, if you're really a believer, you're not going to be a horrible man for long if you're really a believer.
And I think you're giving men too much credit, because I think, why do you think, getting back to an earlier point, there's pastors that steal from the church?
Because they
Pastors
no longer become a believer.
but they use that same title, and they're
Yeah.
still using that
But they're-
same power that comes with that
What
title.
we define as a believer and what God himself defines as a believer is two different things. Just because I say I'm a pastor, man may define me as a believer. But that doesn't mean that in my heart I actually believe.
Oh, of course not. No,
Yeah.
I get that. No, I get it. But see, like examples like my father, you'll always hear me talking about my dad in these conversations, not because I have daddy issues, but because he's a prime example
Yeah.
of someone that's like, he fits every single thing
Yeah.
that we talk about. And
Yeah.
I've taken the time to analyze my father and myself and, all that shit.
Yeah.
So, to those listening, I respect my father as a human being. I don't respect him as a father figure.
Yeah.
Take it how you will. If that makes sense, great. If it doesn't, oh well. So, my dad was married, grew up Orthodox, horrible childhood, horrible teenage years, but got married because that's what was indoctrinated in him at a young age from his mom and his dad, right?
Mm.
Horrible fucking partner. I mean, who he is now to my mom is completely different to the first 18 years that I grew up with. No, I want to say 23, 24 years that I grew up with.
Mm.
I remember for years, I told my mom, leave him.
Mm.
Leave him. This is affecting your kids.
Mm.
This marriage is affecting your behavior. It's affecting how you treat us. This is not going to end well for any of us. And here we are now.
Yeah.
what I called as a 14-year-old is exactly what happened now. And at 17 years old, I'm in the predicament that I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with it. I accept it. I just try not to make the same fucking mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But in the real world, that is something that is very common. At least I want to say when it comes to religious, or at least marriages that integrate religion into the relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And I think it's a horrible flaw. And I think sure, it may seem like an outlier, but it's a damn common outlier, right? That happens a lot more than I think you and I would even know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of problems, this is where we're dissecting the entire spectrum of marriage and what would go into it based on our personal experiences with it, right? And now, my parents, sure, they're still married, and sure, they got the landmark of oh, you're going on 28, 29 years of marriage. And I think the natural response of older people that may listen to this is you're out of line because you're the child and you need to stay out of your parents' business. But I think the problem with that logic is that what happens if your parents' business starts affecting you?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes your business.
Mm-hmm.
Is that incorrect, or is that something you think is wrong to?
No, I think I agree with that.
And then that's where you have single moms. That's where you have single dads. That's where you have a lot of the societal issues that are prevalent right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the ancient roots of a lot of the behaviors we see now all started from marriages in the 50s and 60s and 70s. The way the world is now is entirely a product of the marriages that happened in those times. And I think specifically the 70s, 80s, and 90s and the early 2000s completely warped the dating world and the perception of marriage, because you had the integration of external sources like pop culture, drugs, polygamy from the 70s where everyone was fucking everybody. The 80s, you had drugs and pop and wham and everything that seems like it's not a problem. But little by little, things started changing. And they got to where they are now. And the fundamentals started getting broken. And instead of men, see, I hold a lot of the problems that we have on men. I think women follow the lead of the example that we set.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that, I've said this before, feminism is entirely on men. Blame yourself. Blame the OGs that took advantage of women and the women that wanted to revolt against the men that were abusive. That's fair. That's naturally fair. We may not agree with it from a traditional viewpoint because we're like, no, you need to stay in line and stay with your man. But it's not entirely irrational for a woman to want to leave a situation that is, frankly, tearing her apart.
Right.
And I think that's where, again, I say it time and time again, everything starts with us and it will end with us.
Yeah. Going back to your father, though. One, I don't know your father. I've never met him. But two, there's a difference. And, the church says this a lot. The church will oftentimes say, I'm not religious, I'm a follower of Jesus. Or they'll say, I'm not religious, I believe in relationship, right? Yeah. Because there's a big difference between saying that you believe in Jesus and actually believing in Jesus. So in the case of your dad, I don't know what his he was super orthodox. Okay, but you can be super orthodox and just hold on tradition rather than your heart actually being changed to where you're completely letting go of your identity and your identity being reshaped into the identity that Christ wants you to be.
I'm about to point out something that I think the religious community has. It's a problem, but it's not often talked about because it's seen as taboo. My dad was super orthodox. He at one point was a preacher. He was up on that pedestal talking about faith, talking about loyalty and treating your woman right and raising your kids the right way. That was Sunday morning. By Sunday evening, I was getting my ass whooped because I didn't pray or I forgot to do something that he deemed to be not of God. He would, at some point, beat my mom because he thought something as minor as not passing the salt because she didn't hear him as disrespect. And it was offensive to him, so it was offensive to God. See, yes, I think that you're right. No, I know you're right. If you're going to choose to be a follower of the faith, you should be open to the reform that naturally happens by being a follower of the faith, both in your character and your beliefs. Naturally. I get that. But what happens if you don't? And who says that just because you don't, you're not a man of God? I think that's a common problem that you're going to see a lot, or that you have seen a lot in the church, where you have a man like my father. He truly believes in the Bible to this day. Prays 3 times a day, does everything he has to do according to the Bible. But his character is completely on another spectrum. Not on that of a holy man or someone that follows the Bible, per se. He's more along the lines of fucking 1800s religious men, where women stay in your fucking lane, don't raise your voice to me, blah, 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 etc.
And that's the thing, though. It's like, he's not following the Bible. He's following traditions. He's living as though praying is enough. But what a lot of Christians do is they show up every Sunday to church. They pray every morning when they wake up and every night before they go to sleep and think that that's them being a good Christian. But it's like, the term Christian literally means Christ-like. Being like Christ. It's not about how many times you pray. It's about, one, the fervency in your heart, the real genuineness in the prayer. 2, modeling that life that Christ lived. Letting go of your will and submitting your will to God. You read the scripture and you immediately implement it into your life, forsaking all of what you believe and the way that you feel for what God says to do. Yeah. It's like, I don't always feel like being generous. I don't always feel like being kind.
Yeah.
But I will oftentimes just be like, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter what I feel like. This is what I'm supposed to do because this is what's right. So it's like, forget about me holding on to this grudge of my father. It's like, I've got to forgive him because it's pleasing to the Lord. And if we're really in love with the Lord, all of the other stuff is going to come with it. That's why I was asking, okay, was this a new believer or is this a believer that's been really living it? Because a new believer, it makes sense. It's like, shoot, it's a process becoming a different person. But it's like, if they've been walking in this walk with Christ for a substantial period of time, even if they were, I want to say the term psychopath and addicted to every drug on the planet, a man whore, just reckless in every way conceivable. It's like, yeah, you would suspect that it would take more time for that type of individual to become a moralistic, disciplined human being because of how many addictions that they have to overcome and fight through with God. Although I will say that it seems like those individuals that I've personally met in the church tend to be the most dedicated Christians because of how much of a dark, dirty past that they've gotten redeemed out of, and how grateful they are. It seems like a lot of times it's the ones that really didn't do much bad in their life and then became Christian don't really appreciate the the redemption that they had from their former lifestyle to their current lifestyle, because it's like, oh well, I never really was that bad of a person anyway. Whereas, like for instance, okay, we work at a cigar shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the guy that was locked up for, what did he say, like 13 years?
Which guy?
It doesn't matter. Anyway, there's a customer that we had here, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was locked up for like 13 years. He gets out of prison, and he was happy to get a job at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes. He was so grateful to just be employed. Whereas the suburban kid that is looking for a job and he gets hired at a fast food restaurant, he doesn't have that same mentality, because he feels like, oh man, I'm working at Jack in the Box. This sucks. Whereas this dude, he's working at Jack in the Box like, oh my God, I'm so grateful because I'm a free man. I get to earn money. I get to be a man and be self-sustaining, right? Because he was locked up for 13 years of his life. It's like, it's the same thing with a lot of Christians. The Christians that have had it easy prior to Christ and then come to Christ, they're not as appreciative of that redemptive power of Christ transforming them as the ones that were ex-cons. And the ex-cons, they come and they're like, oh my God, God's healed me of all of these addictions that I had, and of the crazy way of thinking that I had, of all of my violent tendencies and just toxic thinking. And it's like, they're super passionate. And sometimes they're a little abrasive in their teaching, because we all, like, there's no perfect Christians out there, right? Like, nobody's following it perfect. Nobody's interpreting it perfectly as far as the scriptures are concerned.
Of course.
But it's like, it seems to me like the ones that were forgiven of a lot of sin really work hard, whereas the ones who weren't, they feel like they weren't forgiven of as much sin. They're not as proactive in their faith.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's like a side note.
I see that. There is no, again, like, right, wrong answer. Even if you ask a Christian, they'll say no, God and religion and your marriage is the right answer. I don't think I agree with that. Only because I've seen the flaws firsthand, and I've seen it in other relationships. But I also see the benefit of it. And I've seen other relationships where it's thriving because both individuals choose to believe in God and choose to follow, God's wisdom and the Bible. And, like, I think a good example, I barely know him, but what I do know of him is something admirable. It's Rick, who you and I both know. I don't know his history. I don't know his past. I don't know his current story now, but the way he carries himself and the way he respects his wife and his kids and his home is extremely admirable.
Yes, extremely admirable.
And it's something that I think is amazing, really, because it's not too common now. Yeah. Or at least it's not something that I'm often exposed to.
It's one of the best marriages I've ever seen in person.
Yeah. So that's where I think, like, damn, I think having the institution of religion in a marriage can help it thrive. And of course, human differences, it's always going to happen. It's just us as humans, male and female differences. You're never going to avoid it.
No.
It's always going to happen. But I see the benefit of it, But I also see, like, so I'm, like, divided. So currently in my relationship, we don't integrate God. We don't integrate religion. Yeah. She has her beliefs, which, quite honestly, I actually don't know. But I do. And she knows mine. And, like, I told her, I don't know if I want to integrate religion currently, but I don't feel the need to, because this is just my God-believing self speaking right now. I think the essence of God and the premise that I have of faith in God and choosing to, even though I don't live my life according to the Bible and something that's quote unquote the traditional way that I think like would be seen as like something that benefits me through the eyes of God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live my way in a bad or evil intended manner either.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try to think that there is such a thing as good and evil,
Mm-hmm.
good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Certain decisions will make you good,
Mm-hmm.
others will make you bad,
Mm-hmm.
and that you don't necessarily need religion
Mm-hmm.
to determine those. You'll naturally see the consequences of either way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't necessarily like integrate it, because she and I both know right from wrong. She and I have pretty good communication. She and I have a pretty good foundation overall, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't necessarily feel the inclination to, at this point in time, integrate religion.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be against it in the near future or in the future. You know, you just never know.
Right.
Different things happen. So that's why I'm divided.
Yeah.
You know, and then the way that I grew up with the examples that I grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
it for a long time, that's part of the reason why I was polygamous.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I going to be faithful to one woman if I know that I might mistreat her or some shit like that? Even if I never did.
Yeah.
I can honestly say, I don't want to use God as a qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that I've never put my hands on a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Mm-hmm.
One, out of respect for my sisters.
Yeah.
And my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's unnecessary. I think it's weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have to resort to violence to make a point, you didn't have a point to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but, you
I
know,
agree with you, by the way. I agree with you that I don't believe that religion is necessary in order to have a good relationship with another human being. I don't think that that's necessary.
Yeah.
I think that if two people just obeyed their conscience alone,
Yeah.
that would be a good enough way of having harmony between human beings.
I agree.
The problem is that most human beings don't obey their consciences. They instead they obey their flesh and their carnal desires, and that gets them into trouble. You know, it's like, oh well, I know what's right, but this sure does feel like the right thing to do, when really they know that it's not the right thing to do. You know what I mean?
That's right. I absolutely do. But you know, this isn't. There is no right or wrong answer, right or wrong view. It's just more like, you know, make your decisions. Hopefully, they're the right decisions. And I think, really, if you're going to go into marriage, getting back to that point, I'm done with this cigar, by the way. I fucked it up. If you're going to go into marriage, remember that you have to grow. You have to grow. You and your partner have to mutually grow as individuals, and maybe not intellectually, but in your character. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, then what's the point? You're just together because tradition.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Right.
No. If everything's stuck to traditions, women would still be getting their asses whooped, and men would be prevalent everywhere. I mean, they are now, but that's not the point.
Right.
And I believe in growth. I live and die by that principle and that belief. Like, yeah, if you were to ask Mario 6 years ago, 3 years ago, what do I think about that? I probably would have told you, man, whatever, fuck bitches. Get this money, whatever little money I had. Like, what's the point of getting married? Now, I probably slapped the shit out of myself because I was a dumbass. And I was a misguided individual. Not a dumbass. I just spoke stupidly.
You were just ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was misguided.
Yeah.
Or lack of, really.
Yeah, lack of guidance.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're going to go into marriage and accept the changes and accept the differences, but always be open to growing and improving yourself, whether it's financially or fitness or, you know, in your character and beliefs, like whatever the case may be. Like, I think that's where the ability to have a happy marriage or relationship, that's where the power lies. And both of you being willing to compromise and grow together,
Mhm.
you know. And I think that's where at least the concept of religion and God integrated into marriage comes from.
Mhm.
Because if you're both, my assumption, of course,
Mhm.
if you're both following the Bible and you're following the guidance of God
Mhm.
and what you interpret for Him to be telling you, naturally you'll both grow in the faith and then grow with your marriage.
Mhm.
But I think without God, you just follow your conscience, right?
Mhm.
And your better side of yourself, and naturally you'll notice that, like, oh wow, I am a better individual.
Mhm.
I am a better person, a better man, a better woman,
Mhm.
and in turn you could be a better partner
Mhm.
overall.
Yeah.
But this is coming again. This is coming from a guy that's in a relationship, is not married. I've never been in a prior to this relationship. I've never been in a relationship longer than 3 months, maybe 6 months. So I'm actively choosing to improve, and I see the fruit of it.
Yeah.
And to some, that may be a disqualifier. To some, that may be a qualifier. I don't know. That's why these types of discussions, they don't have like a definitive answer or a definitive path to take. It's just more so like follow your better judgment. Try to be a good person. Try not to fuck anybody over. If you're gonna get married, self-help the shit out of it. I don't know. I don't know anything about marriage. I've never been married.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if I were to get married with my girlfriend, I know that I would constantly be like striving to not be my father, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
It's great that you had a poor example and that you realize that it's a poor example so that you have something to run away from and try and be better than what you saw.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that it took a long time to see that. It took a long time to think like, what am I taking from this? I always used to use it as an excuse to be a shitty man. No, I didn't grow up with anything, with any guidance or really anything. So whatever I got is mine, and everybody else is in the way. That's an excuse. That is an excuse.
Yeah.
Everyone has the ability. Doesn't matter where you come from. Like, I don't want to hear any circumstance or whatever. Dog, I come from the gutter. I come from nothing. I come from getting jumped. I come from running away from gangs because I didn't want to join. Like, you can't tell me, right, that there is no way to improve. That there is no way to not help yourself. Like, there is. Again, disabilities aside, suicidal people aside. I'm taking all that aside. I'm just talking about, the quote-unquote average person. And, yeah, man, I think I'm grateful and I'm happy now that that's what I grew up with because that's what I strive not to be. And I'm grateful for that. I see that as a positive,
Yeah.
or at least I try to. I don't know. I still get the flashbacks, but it's all right.
Yeah.
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 That's a joke, but serious.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah, but that's all I got, man. I think that's I don't know, an interesting conversation to hear and have, and in a world where everyone refers to dating coaches, both male and female, and the people that I've heard talk about marriage, they simply say, get married or don't. Just, don't do this or do that. I don't really hear a lot of people talking about the layers that really encompass the entire premise of marriage and like what really goes into it, both in the religious aspect of it, which is the foundation of it, and then one without religion, and then how to navigate that world. And then this is obviously not a fucking manual. We're just having a discussion. But I think it's a good one. Yeah. That's all I got, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, really, I mean, to each their own. Obviously, just try to be a good person. Thrive on your own or thrive together, but just grow. And I think just being a better or good human being will always make you feel better. Always. At least for me, it does.
Yeah.
And that's all I got, man. But like, comment, subscribe, share, and if you see us in person, tell us, like, your experience or your perspective. And I mean, at least I welcome it. I have these talks with certain people that listen to our podcasts. And thank you to everyone that religiously listens to our podcast, because your input is, I think, needed, and it's always welcome, of course. So with that being said, this is Mario.
And Clint. And Clint, for the record, wants to say that despite what I may say about Christians or non-Christians, I in no way mean that I'm this finished work behind museum glass and like I have it all together as a Christian because I'm a believer.
Yeah.
It just means that I actually try. So if you see me in the streets and you're like, man, Clint is such a jerk, it's like, look, I'm fully aware that I don't got it all together, and that just know that at least I'm trying, and eventually I'm going to get closer to being all together than what I am currently.
Yeah.
And I felt like I needed to say that because, like, I can oftentimes seem like I'm extremely critical, but it's only because I'm thinking of, like, perfection. I'm not thinking of, like, realistic what's really going on in the world. I create this ideal of what I think should be rather than what is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah. I mean, we're flawed human beings, and nobody's perfect. Nobody has it all figured out, and even if you think you do, you don't. I'll tell you right now, it is what it is. But be welcome to have the discussion.
Yeah.
Be open to it. Because if you're not, you're choosing to be ignorant.
Yeah.
Period. Even if you disagree, it's a good thing you disagree. That means you have an opinion.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have an opinion, be informed.
Yes.
So, with that being said, thank you for joining us. This is Mario
and Clint
again, and we're out.